Sup, guys? It's Toad back with you for the evening edition of Tuesday's Better Off Dead show. As I mentioned, I would be back because I talked too much about college basketball, so I did not get to the NBA and NHL. I do not have any NBA plays. I do have two NHL plays. I'll talk about those briefly. As far as college basketball, go check out the morning show. I broke it down. Of course, it's on right now. I think I probably have one of the games on right now. I don't even know what game it is. Whatever's on ESPN right now, I think is what I have on. Watching some of the early action. I'm already 1-0 today, so hopefully you guys got that winner that I threw out on the morning show. Cincinnati. Easy, no sweat winner on Cincinnati, -6.5. Even if you got to it late. Well, I think it was up to like 7.5, and then it came back down to 6.5. So I was like, I don't know what's going on with this market, but it was such an easy win, dude. Cincinnati, I mean, they were dominant in the parts of the game that I watched. Like in the second half, there was a string of plays that I saw. It was like 4 straight possessions for Cincinnati where they had dunks on every possession. I'm like, Oklahoma State just cannot defend the Cincinnati team at all. Cincinnati just dominant size advantage on them, whatever the case may be. Just more athleticism, just more talent on that team. So we got that one right. Some of my leans maybe not getting that TCU game. I mean, they almost made the comeback. They had a crazy comeback. And then the way the Pitt game ended was just bullshit, man. I mean, that was not a foul. They called a foul. If you didn't see it, it was a tied game. Notre Dame basically went for the last shot, actually off an offensive rebound. They tried to put it back in. It didn't go in, and the thought was, okay, we're going to overtime here. Then it's like, wait a minute. They called a foul, like a late foul call. And there was almost no contact on this. And it's a foul, and the Notre Dame gets free throws, and they made one of the two, and that's how the game ended. Great. Okay. One of the worst endings to a game I've ever seen. Like, I didn't even have any rooting interest in that game, and I'm just like, this is stupid. Not that Notre Dame's going to go anywhere in that tournament. I mean, the ACC is just terrible, or go anywhere anyway. But anyway, yeah, so we got the win on Cincinnati. As you can see here, I mean, the cash percentage did wind up coming in on them, so that was good. TCU actually went off a 3-point favorite. I don't want to rehash all this stuff, but money came in on them and on Pitt, and both of those lost. I don't know what's going on with this Utah Tech game, by the way, because that game was up. They'd gone up to a 6-point favorite and then back down to a 4.5-point favorite, and they're the team with the lesser record and the team that was like maybe indicated as being like the slightly better team with the line like during the regular season game. So I really don't know what happened. Like, I don't know, maybe there's injuries. I don't know what's going on with that game. But we're not going to talk about that. Briefly, one more time, I do have one more college basketball play, which I gave out this morning anyway. Central Connecticut State. They're up from 9.5 to 11. I got it at 10. I don't know what you could still get, 10, 10.5. I mean, I would probably still just lay the big number. 76% of tickets, 80% of the cash coming in on them. I like that side, obviously. I gave it out this morning. The one thing I will say about Cincinnati and Central Connecticut State is that they are slow-paced teams. So you are laying points with a slow-paced team, which is kind of the one, like, little bit of a question mark there. Teams that play slow-paced, obviously it's a little bit more difficult to cover a number like this, but Central Connecticut, I mean, they should be able to do it, man. I mean, they're so much the better team than St. Francis here. It better happen. And one thing I forgot to mention this morning is that St. Francis won the previous 2 games in the previous 2 rounds of this tournament. The games that they won both games on walk-off 3 free throws, just like Notre Dame did today. St. Francis got fouled on a 3-pointer in a tied game at the end of both of those other 2 games to win those games. It's just ridiculous, man. And in St. Francis's game at Long Island, they were losing that game by like 17 points in the second half, and they came back and wound up winning the game, whereas Central Connecticut did the complete opposite, and they were winning by like 21 in their game, I think probably in the second half, and wound up blowing the entire lead and having to win in overtime. So it was almost like those games were the inverse of each other, and St. Francis was basically dead in their game, and Central Connecticut State basically had their game completely in the bag. So both results were misleading. Yet again, Central Connecticut State is the play in that one. Let's talk about NHL here, man. Let's go. We got a lot of games today, man. Where do I even want to start? So many NHL games. Florida is at my Boston Bruins. The Bruins Florida's actually down from minus 210 to minus 201, but 79% of tickets, 90% of the cash coming in on Florida. So you know they're going to be public. This morning, it looked like the cash percentage was actually coming in on Boston. And now the Bruins are off of kind of a misleading win over Tampa, and that was the first game after they traded Marchand. I never like to pronounce it as Marchand, man. It's Marchand. That's how I pronounce it. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's my French background coming in there, but he got traded, and we know he got traded to Florida. But that trade seemed to like kind of spark something in the Bruins, and they played a good game against Tampa there. Bruins actually played well defensively. Swayman had a good game. That game, it was misleading, though. The Bruins won 4-0, and it was a 1-0 game in the third period. The second goal that the Bruins scored, I think it was the second one. It was just a flip from like center ice, basically, and Vasilevsky, I don't know what he was doing. He wasn't ready for it at all, and he completely just didn't see it coming, and it went in. I've never seen anything like that before. And then the Bruins' third line, I think, scored at least, I think maybe both of the additional goals. I think at least one was an empty net, though. But either way, that was a big win for the Bruins. It was an emotional win, but you got to think the Bruins are going to be real emotional here, too, because they just traded Marchand, and he's coming back in this game for Florida. And, you know, he's going to be emotional, but I think it's a bigger game for the Bruins, man. Because, I mean, Florida's the team that eliminated them both of the last two seasons. Even though I think the Bruins did beat them at least once this season, I want to say. So a little bit of revenge there, but still. I mean, this is the team that knocked you out of the playoffs the last 2 years, man. And it's the team that now has your guy, Marchand, who's been with you for 16 years. I think the Bruins are probably going to celebrate him, man. Like, he's probably going to get a standing ovation tonight, even though everybody hates Florida. I would guess that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be a big game for the Bruins, man. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Bruins showed up for this game, and I would actually probably lean to taking the puck line with the Bruins if I was going to play this game. I mean, Florida's off of multiple shutouts in a row as well. They're starting a road trip, so you got to think, yeah, maybe they should be focused as well, but the Bruins also probably have a little bit of extra motivation, too, if they think that they can still try to make a playoff run and make like a late run this season. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of playoff runs, Columbus is at New Jersey here. Columbus is coming off just a destruction of the Rangers, 7-3, although I think that game was closer in the middle of the game. But beating the Rangers 7-3 is just insane, man. And now they're coming off of that, and I know the Devils are also a good team, but when you beat the Rangers 7-3, man, and the Rangers are competing with Columbus for a playoff spot, although New Jersey is probably going to be a playoff team as well, I would have to imagine. But coming off that big game against the Rangers, could be a little bit of a letdown maybe for Columbus here. New Jersey, they, I believe, just broke a loss streak. Yeah, they did. They lost 3 games in a row, got an easy win against Philadelphia, so that can kind of stop that, like, losing momentum for them. So I kind of lean to the New Jersey side here. They're down from minus 170 to minus 156, but 51% of tickets, 75% of the cash. So they do have the money coming in on them, and I agree with that one. Ottawa, Philadelphia, this is one of my plays. It is Philadelphia. I gave it out at plus 100 this morning, but I think you can get, I think they might be a slight favorite now, but I don't know. Philadelphia plus 100 was what I played earlier today. Actually, let me leave it up because I'm going to talk about it. If you want to get them at like a small, like juiced underdog price, which is probably going to be like minus 102, minus 106, whatever. I like the Philadelphia side in this game, man. Looking at the market here, Ottawa's down from minus 130 to minus 117. 68% of the tickets on 69, I guess 69, nice. And then 52% of the cash on Philadelphia. So whatever line you can get, I like Philadelphia on the money line here, man. I think it's a bad spot for Ottawa. The market indicators are all over Philadelphia here. So this is going to be a play for me. Ottawa, they're coming off a few big wins, or 2 big wins in a row, really. 3 wins in a row, but 2 big wins. And they're coming off they had played 3 straight overtime and shootout games, and then got another win against Detroit, which is a big win because both of these teams are fighting to get into the playoffs. So Ottawa and Detroit, both bubble teams right now. And Ottawa, it's like, when is Allmark going to get a day off? It's probably going to be tonight, you would have to imagine. So Allmark has been playing well. He's come back. He's gotten back in the groove, but they're on a back-to-back now, man, and they're playing 3 games in 4 days, going to Philadelphia for 1 game, which is like it's just kind of a weird travel spot, having to go down to Philadelphia with no time off. Philadelphia's a losing team. They got Boston, who technically is still kind of fighting with them for a playoff spot, and then Toronto up after that, and Montreal also fighting for a playoff spot. So this is a sandwich spot, in my opinion. They have all bigger games coming up next, man. Beating the Rangers in OT. I mean, Rangers are fighting with Ottawa for a playoff spot. Detroit fighting for a playoff spot. I mean, these are all like wild card contenders right now. Philadelphia is not really. So we're looking at Ottawa now. They're going to have their either like ridiculously unrested Allmark, or they're going to have Forsberg, who's certainly not their better goalie, in net tonight. On no rest for the team, and sandwiched in between bigger games. Yeah, it's a bad spot for Ottawa. Philadelphia, they're on a losing streak right now, so you got to think they're just going to try to win a game at some point here, man. I mean, they lost at home to New Jersey. They've had one day off now. That was a back-to-back, so they weren't as rested in that game. Now at least they have one day off, so they're the more rested team with no travel. You got to think they're going to try to pay attention to some game here, man, and get a win here. Fedotov was in net for their last game, so probably you're going to get Urson back in net, which is a slight upgrade at least. So that's what we got going on there. I like Philadelphia in that game. That is the play there for me. I do have one other play, which is the next game up, Tampa at Carolina. I'm going to play Tampa. I have it listed at plus 106 here from this morning, but I think you can get up to like maybe plus 115 or something on Tampa right now. The line had moved up a little bit, but now it's kind of moving back down. Carolina down from minus 145 to minus 138. I thought that they would be public, 64% of tickets, but 78% of the cash coming in on Carolina. But either way, so some conflicting market indicators there. I don't really love the idea of going against Carolina at home, and they do have a strong home record. They're really good at home, but I think the spot dictates it, man. I mean, Carolina, they just beat Winnipeg. That's a huge win, even though, yeah, Tampa is a big game as well, but that's a big game, big win for Carolina, man. They're on this nice win streak here. Tampa Bay, they're coming off that ugly loss to the Bruins. So you got to think that Tampa Bay is going to want to right the ship here. Not only that, but they're starting a road trip against Carolina. You know you're going to get focused from Tampa Bay, and they have one extra day off over what Carolina has, although they are traveling, but still only from Tampa to Carolina for this game. Not a whole lot of travel, so Tampa does have the extra day off. And, again, that extra day off can kind of help you, and you're coming off an ugly loss. And just like I said when I was talking about that game, when I was talking about the Bruins, that was a misleading result, man. I mean, that was a 1-0 game to the third period. There was at least one empty netter in this game. There was that just bizarre center ice. One empty netter, and then another goal after that. Actually weird. And then the Kastelik goal was from center ice. It was just very, very strange. So the game was not as much of a blowout as it looks, even though, yeah, Tampa's offense wasn't good. But you got to think they're going to try to start turning this around, man. And Carolina, honestly, I think they may have gotten the worst of that trade, which was, what was it? They traded Natchez for Rantanen. Is that who it is? And it seems like it's really kind of made them a slightly worse team, made their defense worse. I don't know what the deal is there, but I think the spot's better for Tampa. I like Tampa in that one. The market read looked a lot stronger this morning. I think the Philly play is better, but I will be on the Tampa side as an underdog there. I think it's the weakest of all my plays today, though. And then Colorado at Minnesota. Maybe I should leave it off my card. Hopefully that's not going to come back to bite me in the ass. Colorado, they're coming off an easy win over the Blackhawks there, 3-0. And now they're starting a road trip. I always say, again, you start a road trip, you tend to be focused, but they're on a back-to-back. They won that game against Chicago yesterday, so no rest plus travel. I mean, maybe not the greatest spot for Colorado there, on the back-to-back there, and really being a third game in 4 days, so I don't want to try to do anything with Colorado here, even though I continue to say Minnesota, they're not as good as their record looks. They continue to be lined by the odds makers as not as good as their record looks. They're coming off two ugly losses, though, and they had the day off yesterday, and they're staying at home, so both teams probably in focus spots, but Minnesota probably the more focused spot, coming off an embarrassing loss to Pittsburgh at home. They're probably in a bounce-back spot. You know they're going to be focused with Colorado coming into their place. So even though Minnesota, I think, is overrated, I think Minnesota is the right side in this one. Colorado, even though they should be focused, I mean, they're on the back-to-back. They're down from minus 200 to minus 152 here, so a lot of movement on that one. Probably Colorado It was probably because of the goaltender announcement. Colorado's probably going with their lesser goalie there. 58% of the tickets on them and 81% of the cash coming in on Minnesota. So strong market indicators on Minnesota. I do agree with it. Rangers are at Winnipeg. That's a big game as well. Rangers coming off that horrendous looking loss to Columbus, 7-3. So you got to think the Rangers are going to try to right the ship here, man. And they're starting a road trip with 1 day off here, but it is travel out to Winnipeg, and it's a third game in 4 days, and actually all in different cities because they were in Ottawa, then back home. So that was a tough spot. That's part of the reason why they lost to Columbus is they were coming off of 2 straight overtime games, and they were on no rest on a back-to-back returning home. So that was a bad spot. They used Quick in net, so we're going to get Shesterkin back in net, and he's probably going to want to bounce back from a couple of those previous games. So we're getting the better goalie for the Rangers. They're in a bounce-back spot. They're starting a road trip, which, like I say, tends to be a focus spot because you want to get the road trip off on the right foot, and you know they're going to be focused playing Winnipeg. Rangers have kind of more to play for here because they're trying to get into the playoffs still. Winnipeg, we know they're going to be in the playoffs. Winnipeg's actually returning home from a road trip, so it's a pretty bad spot for Winnipeg, really, even though you think they should be focused on the Rangers. So this was almost a play for me, man, because I think it's a more of a focus spot and a bounce-back spot for the Rangers. But I looked at the market, and the market read is kind of on the Winnipeg side, and Winnipeg has a very, very good home record, actually better than the Carolinas. So it's pretty tough to come in and fade Winnipeg in a spot like this, although that would be the way that I would lean. I would look to the Rangers side in this game. At the price that it is, it would probably just be taking the Rangers on the money line and just hoping that it gets there. Winnipeg up from -175 to -186. 79% of tickets, 90% of the cash coming in on them. I mean, it's in that price range where it's really kind of tough to take the underdog because you're taking them at +150, +160 or something. So it's one of those things where it's like you don't really want to lay the price on the +1.5 puck line, although you could split the bet, like I always say. But then it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, you're taking less risk at least. And then if the team does win outright, you'll still collect, the same amount that you would get if you won just by betting the money line. So there is kind of an advantage to it if you do it the way that I do. But either way, I mean, I lean to the Rangers side, so do with that information what you will. And then Islanders and the Kings. This is kind of a weird one, man. Islanders are already out on the West Coast, and they just lost badly to Anaheim, 4-1. So you've got to think they're going to want to bounce back from that. Maybe they were even looking ahead to L.A. here, but they are playing a third game in 4 days, and technically it's all in different cities, although from Anaheim to L.A., you're just going up the road. So really it's not as bad. Sorokin should be back in net for the Islanders here, so they will get their better goalie back as Hogberg played the last game, and he didn't do well. The team didn't do well, so it is a spot where I would still be looking to maybe play the Islanders in this game. And the Kings are off of a big 6-5 win over the Vegas Knights. That's a big win for them. Coming back home with Washington up next, it is a sandwich spot for the Kings, so for all those reasons, I would lean to the Islanders, even though they are out in the middle of this road trip here. The market read, again, looks like the money's coming in on the Kings, though, up from -165 to -186. 96% of tickets, 98% of the cash, but they are very, very public, probably too public. So, again, I would only look to the Islanders side and finding ways to play the Islanders in that game. And then Nashville against San Jose. Nashville, I think, is kind of in a letdown spot because they just beat Chicago. So that's actually a rivalry game, so that is actually a big win. Nashville actually has won 3 games in a row, starting to do something. This Nashville team has been underperforming, in my opinion, all year, man. But now they're starting a road trip, and again, like I say, you usually are focused when you start a road trip because you want to get it off on the right foot. I feel like a broken record here, but that does make it kind of a positive spot, even though the extra day off might kind of hurt their momentum a little bit. I don't know if they're really going to be that focused on San Jose. San Jose just returned home in their last game and lost again to the Islanders. So a lot of times when a team returns home from a road trip, that's a bad spot because it's a distraction spot. You return home, you've been away for a long time. They were away for a long time. They had a really long road trip, like a 7-game road trip here. No let up, really. Bad road trip. Long road trip for the Sharks there. And by bad road trip, I just mean a long road trip, like a brutal road trip. I don't mean they did that poorly. I mean, for the Sharks, winning 2 games on the road trip isn't that bad. returning home, I mean, the return home spot tends to be a bad spot, like I said. And then if you do badly in that game, sometimes you do better in the next game up. So we may see that there. So kind of a positive spot for the Sharks there. National down from minus 170 to minus 161. 59% of the tickets on them, but 54% of the cash coming in on the Sharks. So the market read is on San Jose in that game. I would agree with that. And then over in the NBA, we have a small card here. And really, I mean, talking about the Nets briefly, just because this is the first game up, I mean, it's not an interesting game, except for the fact that I had the Nets last night, and now they're coming off that win over the Lakers and traveling to Cleveland on a back-to-back. So a team like the Nets, I mean, that's a big win for them. So you got to think that they're probably going to be a little bit hungover, even though, yeah, you do want to step it up to play Cleveland as well. But are they really going to be able to do that when they're coming off that big win over the Lakers, even though I know it was the LeBron-less Lakers? Probably a pretty bad spot for Brooklyn there. Cleveland's coming off a nice win over Milwaukee, too, though. So they might really not have full focus on Brooklyn here either. And they do have Memphis up next. So I'm not going to touch this game. Cleveland's down from 17.5 to 15. And my guess would be that that's not actually because the money's coming into the Nets. My guess would actually be that that's probably because Cleveland is resting some guys because they know that they can beat the Nets without their full lineup. 53% of tickets, 71% of the cash coming in on Cleveland. I agree with the Cleveland side here. It's just not, it's not going to be a play for me. I mean, I just think the Nets spot is a bit worse. Yeah, so Donovan Mitchell's going to be out. He's listed as out. DeAndre Hunter as well, but Mitchell, obviously the key component there. So that's, I believe, the reason why the line has moved the way that it has. Milwaukee and Indiana is really the only, like, competitive game here, if you want to call it that, as we have Detroit as a double-digit favorite here, and then the Clippers and New Orleans, although Clippers only a 7.5-point favorite. There could be a little bit of a competitive game, but Milwaukee and Indiana is like the only game anybody cares about at all on the slate here tonight. That's the TNT game. This one you got to pay attention to who's in and who's out. The Bucks were a 3-point favorite. Now they're down to a 1-point favorite. So the line has moved down on them, but that could be personnel related, even though it does look like based on the cash and ticket percentages, the market read is on Indiana, though. 56% of the tickets on the Bucks, 56% of the cash on Indiana, though. The Bucks, of course, we know they got eliminated from the playoffs last year by the Pacers, but the Bucks did get their revenge. I believe the Bucks are 2-0 against the Pacers in the regular season this year. So now it's a little bit of in-season revenge for the Pacers. The Pacers did play the Bucks well in Indiana during that playoff series. But you got to look at the personnel here, which Halliburton has been out for the Pacers. I think he's missed a couple of games. He is off the injury report, so it seems like Halliburton's going to play. And then as far as the Bucks are concerned, Lillard looks like he's a game-time decision. Giannis is a game-time decision. So I think the line move is really because Halliburton must have been listed as in. That would be my guess because we don't really have any other information about the Bucks, whether or not Giannis and Lillard are going to play. I mean, that could definitely affect the spread here. But my guess is that Halliburton is coming back. Let me just look at RotoWire here real quick. He is available, so it looks like he is going to come back. He was questionable, so I'm pretty sure that Halliburton, his injury status is why this line has moved. Because it does look a little strange that the Bucks would be the favorite here. Oddsmakers telling you they're the better enough team that they're favored at Indiana. I probably would not want to lean to the Bucks side, though. I mean, the Bucks, even though Halliburton is coming back, so it is going to be a little bit of a reverse injured player theory for the Pacers for that reason. So he's missed a couple of games in a row, I think, so they're going to have to kind of work him back in because he is basically their best player. So could be a little bit of an issue, like, getting back up to speed. So early on, they might start a little bit slow for that reason. The Bucks starting a road trip here. I mean, it's a big game for the Bucks too, but they're coming off that big game over Cleveland as well. So maybe not the greatest spot for the Bucks. It is a one game. It is a single road game though before they play the Lakers. So I don't know. And then they play Indiana again after that at home. Kind of a weird scheduling spot, really. But I mean, I don't think the Bucks are going to overlook Indiana, really. But then again, you got to pay attention to, is Giannis going to play? Is Lillard going to play? And to me, if the Bucks are favored on the road, it seems like the books are kind of indicating that probably at least one of those guys is going to be out there tonight, maybe both. it's hard to really tell with the NBA, man. There's so much going on with the NBA. We really got to pay attention to who's in and who's out. But I think that's about it, man. I don't really have that much else. The NBA, not a whole lot to really talk about with the NBA tonight. But once again, my plays today, Cincinnati and college basketball -6.5 already cashed. So hopefully you guys listened to me this morning and were able to get that one. Central Connecticut State -10 in the NEC title game. It might be -10.5, 11 now. I would probably still do it. I mean, there's not a huge difference there. NHL Flyers +100 or something close to that. And then Tampa Bay +106. I think it was up to around like +110, +115, somewhere in that range. Whatever the best you can do is. Tower Gang Toad on Twitter, of course, and patreon.com/Tower Gang. And you can support the most offensive podcast ever to be created, and you get bonus material there. You get tomorrow night we'll be back with you on 9:11 p.m. Eastern with Tower Gang, baby. Making you laugh, making you cry, making you upset, and offending you as much as possible. So come check that out. And again, if you subscribe to the Patreon, you get to submit mailbag questions, which we probably won't even read, or make fun of you, that you do that through a Telegram. So you get to hang out with us in a Telegram, and you get bonus content, man. You get the live pre-show, so you get to see us yelling at each other and trying to set up the show, and have business meetings for at the worst possible time, and be late to everything. And you get to see what used to be the post show and is now kind of the second half of the show. You get all of that with the Patreon stuff. So that's going to do it. And you get access to a Patreon feed with all that stuff on it. That's going to do it. Thanks, guys, and have a good one. Peace.